only days to go, where the Trump and Biden campaigns are headed in the final stretch of the 2020 election. Holding the key. A few states could tilt the balance in the Senate. Today, we preview the races in Iowa and Colorado. Order of Malta. A closer look at one of the oldest Catholic institutions in the world. And Beatification preview. We're in New Haven, Connecticut, ahead of tomorrow's ceremony for the founder of the Knights of Columbus. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, October 30th, 2020. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, President Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Joe Biden both campaign in the Midwest. The Democratic presidential nominee says he is going to work for every single vote up until the last minute. And President Trump's campaign announced an aggressive schedule leading up to the election. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, tonight, President Donald Trump is in Minnesota for a rally, but only 250 people are being allowed to attend. Earlier in the day, he was in Wisconsin for a rally, but his first stop of the day, Michigan, where he saw some Catholic nuns in the crowd.
9 sisters. Look at these beautiful sisters, huh? They like Trump, but I like them. They even have a Trump flag. Look at that Trump flag. That's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you know, we're working very hard with Little Sisters of the Poor, right? You know about that. Your friends. That's great. That's great. It's great to have you. Thank you very much.
Also in the nation's heartland today, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, who's adding more events to his calendar now that we're so close to Election Day. On the schedule, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa.
Why should a firefighter, an educator, a nurse, a cop pay at a higher tax rate, which you do, than a major multi-billion-dollar corporation? Why should you pay more taxes than Donald Trump, who paid $750?
Former Vice President Joe Biden also promised not to raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. And back to Michigan now, President Donald Trump got some big cheers there when he said he's working to help the Chaldean Christian community in Michigan. And also earlier today, President Trump told reporters he's not sure where he'll be next week to watch the election results come in on Tuesday night, but he's not sure if it'll be the White House as well. It might be his hotel, but we're still waiting to find out. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting tonight. Senate campaigns are heating up on this last weekend before Election Tuesday. Iowa and Colorado are 2 key states Republicans are working to hold on to in order to maintain their majority. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Iowa is a battleground in the presidential race, and it's making headlines for its Senate contest, too. That's where Republican Senator Joni Ernst and her Democratic challenger Teresa Greenfield are in the second most expensive election battle in the nation, spending more than $236 million so far. It's earned them neck-and-neck results. A Quinnipiac University poll gives Senator Joni Ernst a slight edge, 48% to Teresa Greenfield's 46%.
My dad was a crop duster, and farming was our way of life.
Democrat Teresa Greenfield supports legal abortion and is endorsed by abortion supporters NARAL, Emily's List, and the Planned Parenthood Action Fund.
I will always defend a woman's right to make her own health care decisions.
I am proudly pro-life. I think every life has value.
In the Senate, Republican Joni Ernst has co-sponsored several pro-life bills and is endorsed by the pro-life Susan B. Anthony's List's Candidate Fund PAC. In Colorado, Republican incumbent Cory Gardner and former Governor Democrat John Hickenlooper are trading harsh words.
Still silent about Donald Trump's failures on COVID. When John Hickenlooper faced an economic crisis, he made Colorado the #1 economy in the country.
He admits he would not be an effective senator.
The Senate doesn't attract me at this point. It wouldn't bring me any kind of satisfaction.
I cross party lines to get things done.
But the latest political IQ poll shows Senator Gardner behind his Democratic challenger 42% to John Hickenlooper's 51%. That could mean another gain in the Senate for Democrats. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Voters in New Zealand have chosen to legalize euthanasia.
We have chosen to give those people suffering some real choice.
An ethicist for the New Zealand Catholic bishops says the vote puts vulnerable people on a dangerous path. Most voters approve the measure, which allows patients with less than 6 months to live to request assisted suicide. However, there are some restrictions. The patients must be over the age of 18 and they must get approval from 2 doctors. China is accusing U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo of fabricating lies.
我们敦促蓬佩奥停止炮制各种拙劣的涉华谎言。
Secretary Pompeo called China's Communist Party, quote, the gravest threat to the future of religious freedom. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry is accusing the secretary of slander. He's also claiming that no Chinese police officers were among those arrested by the U.S. Department of Justice for acting as illegal agents of China. Abortion activists in Poland are preparing for what they say will be the largest protest so far. They have been protesting for over a week now in cities across Poland after a top court banned abortions, even in cases of birth defects. Tonight's march in Warsaw is in defiance of government appeals to stay home because of skyrocketing COVID-19 infections. In Russia, people are laying flowers at a memorial to victims of Joseph Stalin's purges in Moscow. Joseph Stalin ruled from 1924 until his death in 1953. A campaign of massive political repression affected all parts of society in the 1930s. An estimated 1 million people died just from 1937 to 1938. But some in Russia still revere him and credit him with leading the country to victory in World War II. Soldiers in France are patrolling outside of Catholic churches after yesterday's terror attack in the southern city of Nice. Bells were rung at churches across France to pay tribute to the 3 people who were killed and the several others who were wounded in the knife attack. Armed officers are protecting churches across France today. The Bishop of Nice says that all churches in the city would be closed out of precaution and noted that the terror attack happened a couple of weeks after a schoolteacher was beheaded in Paris. One of the oldest religious institutions in the Catholic Church will elect a new Grand Master in Rome next week. The Order of Malta is dedicated to hundreds of charitable projects around the world. EWTN News Rome correspondent Helen Flanagan sat down with the Grand Chancellor to talk about their vision for the future.
Established in the 11th century, the Order of Malta is a 900-year-old institution operating medical and humanitarian projects in 120 countries around the world. The order is made up of more than 13,000 knights, dames and chaplains, 42,000 employees and 80,000 volunteers. Its headquarters are in Rome, where on November the 7th, knights from around the world will gather to elect a new Grand Master. Albrecht Boslager is the Grand Chancellor, or could be called the Prime Minister of the sovereign body.
The Grand Master is the head of the order, so he has to lead the order, and he has to care for the unity of the order.
And it's a complicated role because not only is he head of a religious order, but it's also an independent sovereign body as well that he will be governing.
Yeah, so he is chosen from among the religious because he is the religious superior of the order, and he is the head of the sovereign institution representing the order politically. Of course, the nomination of a new delegate will give more stability because we will allow the order to go back to ordinary administration.
A point of contention between members of the order is a plan to reform its constitution, a constitution which dates back to before the Second Vatican Council.
Regulations for religious life and the religious has changed in Vatican II and the instructions of the Holy See following Vatican II. And we have to adapt to it.
And with these changes to the Constitution, possible changes, it has been in the press that there's been some tension within the order, people wondering and worrying about the direction, the role of religious people within the order. How do you think that will play out?
I think if you are considering reforms of constitutions, discussions are normal. It would be, I would be astonished if there would not be discussions. A bit of unrest, of course, as always in these situations. But my feeling is that on many questions, a consensus is growing. So I'm confident that we will come to results within a year.
The past few months have posed a great challenge for the Order of Malta as their humanitarian efforts on the ground were disrupted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But they forged ahead, and when their food shelters were forced to close in parts of the world, they found other ways to distribute the food. In Lebanon, they have been a strong presence, helping those devastated after the recent explosion in Beirut. So much need in the world today, across all the continents, and so many bodies trying to help them. Why is it so important for an organisation like the Order of Malta to be helping but still have that religious Catholic ethos at its core?
That's our founding principle. Christ's command to love your neighbor, and Matthew 25, what you have done for the least of my brothers. I think that's the base on which we stand. Without this, there would not be a reason to carry on as Order of Malta.
Grand Chancellor, it's been great talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
In Rome, Colin Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, a preview of tomorrow's Beatification Mass for Father Michael McGivney, founder of the Knights of Columbus. Tomorrow, the founder of the Knights of Columbus, Father Michael McGivney, will be beatified. The beatification will take place in Hartford, Connecticut. But tonight, a 48-hour prayer vigil will begin in New Haven, where Father McGivney founded the Knights of Columbus. Correspondent Mark Irons reports now from New Haven, outside of St. Mary's Parish. Mark?
Tracy, Father McGivney served here as a parish priest at St. Mary's in the late 1800s, and he started to gather together men from the predominantly Irish Catholic immigrant community, and those initial meetings would come to form the group that we now know as the Knights of Columbus, the largest Catholic fraternal organization in the world. It all began right here.
It was in this very basement where we're standing, where Father McGivney gathered that first group of men after a period of discernment and looking at options and praying through options, formed what today we call the Knights of Columbus.
Father John Paul Walker is pastor of St. Mary's Church. Over 130 years ago, Father Michael McGivney was a priest at this parish.
The moment I arrived and walked in the church for the first time, I felt, you might say, the presence and the legacy of Father McGivney.
Now the church is preparing for 48 hours of prayer and devotions in honor of the priest who will soon be one step away from possible sainthood.
We feel incredibly blessed.
Earlier today in the church sanctuary where the tomb of Father McGivney is located, the choir practiced while cameras and lights were set up for the celebration. It will start with a prayer vigil for priests, and the entire weekend of events will be live streamed.
I will be helping with translation.
Father Karl Anderson and Maxime Nogy, the director of the St. John Paul II National Shrine, traveled from Washington, D.C. and will be translating the events into Polish and French.
The church is celebrating a new beatified person, which is quite unique.
Due to COVID restrictions, the crowd here may not be as large, but there's no question the global church is excited about recognizing a new blessed.
As a priest, we are looking for some new means of evangelization, new means to reaching lay people. He really shows us the way.
I'll be covering the events here throughout the weekend on social media, and tomorrow the Beatification Mass for Father McGivney will take place about an hour away in Hartford. We'll be covering that as well. Tracy.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight from New Haven, Connecticut. And today, more than 2 million men of the Knights of Columbus continue to advance Father Michael McGivney's legacy and mission here in America and across the world. Karl Anderson, Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, joins me now on Skype. Karl, welcome back. Always so good to see you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, Father McGivney's cause for sainthood was opened in the Archdiocese of Hartford back in 1997, and he is now one step closer to that. What does his beatification represent? And personally, what does this moment mean to you?
Well, it represents, of course, great encouragement for the church in the United States and all the countries the Knights of Columbus is in for sure, as well as the 2 million members of the Knights of Columbus that our founder now is going to be known as Blessed after the beatification ceremony. For me, Father McGivney's been a great inspiration and encouragement, and I've relied on his intercession many times. I have to say, you know, being Supreme Knight for 20 years, I have to thank Father McGivney for keeping me making some mistakes, I suppose, along the way. So it's a very joyful time for all of us.
Yeah, indeed. The miracle recognizes coming through Father McGivney's intercession. It involves the unborn son of a knight. The baby was healed in utero of a life-threatening condition after prayers by his family to Father McGivney back in 2015. And we're happy to say that little boy is now 5 years old. What an incredibly powerful message of healing and hope.
Well, I think so. You know, the doctors saw the condition of the child and said, look, you have really two options. One is abortion, and the other is to deliver a dead child. The family wouldn't take either of those answers for a final answer. So they went on a pilgrimage to Fatima, along with many other Knights of Columbus, prayed intensely, came back from the pilgrimage. 4 days later, they had an ultrasound, and the baby was cured. So fantastic miracle, and especially for Knights of Columbus, because it's a Knight of Columbus family. The father is actually one of our insurance agents. And we've done so much with Special Olympics, with children with Down syndrome, and here's a child with Down syndrome healed. We have this ultrasound program that over 1,100 ultrasounds throughout the United States, which we think have prevented 1 million abortions in crisis pregnancy centers. And so from a pro-life perspective, a Knights of Columbus perspective, helping the handicapped perspective, it was all a tremendous miracle for us, really.
Well, as the founder of the Knights of Columbus, Father McGivney's legacy really continues to thrive. Can you tell us about some of the ways that his vision continues to help the world and also advance the Catholic faith?
Well, you know, Father McGivney's overriding concern was to keep the members of his parish, the families of his parish, Catholic, and keep them from leaving the church. So many men at the time were leaving to join anti-Catholic secret societies. So Knights of Columbus was an answer to that. And then many families were being broken up in the death of the breadwinner, the widow and orphan. If they couldn't prove to a court that they had the financial resources to continue, often the children were taken from the mother and put into foster homes. And many of those were not Catholic. So let's keep our Catholic families Catholic, keep them active in the parish, number one. Number two, you know, this was a time when Catholics were very much a subject of prejudice, discrimination, and we could have very easily sought to become ghettoized, you know, retreat, become insular. But Father McGivney said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to project Catholic influence in society by the activity of our laity, our laymen, and we were going to do it on the principles of charity, unity, and fraternity. And soon patriotism added to that, that you can be a faithful Catholic and also a good American citizen. So those were some of the objectives that Father McGivney had in mind. And I think there was one more objective that Father McGivney had. You know, during the 19th century, America was mission territory for the Catholic Church. And I think Father McGivney had a missionary spirit, a missionary mission as a parish priest. So we think of him as an ideal model as a parish priest, but he also saw his work as a missionary work. And so this idea of being a witness, and for the men and women of his parish to also be witnesses in their life, is a very important part of the Knights of Columbus. We may not all be able to be on news programs or to write beautiful essays or homilies, but we can all make a witness to the truth of our Catholic faith and the value of our Catholic faith by the lives we lead. And so here's Father McGivney creating a kind of a path of discipleship around the values of charity, unity, and fraternity. And it's It served us well for nearly a century and a half now.
Well, Karl, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us today. We really appreciate it. Karl Anderson, Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And special programming starts tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern with a prayer vigil. The Beatification Mass is set for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. And tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern is a program, A Witness for the World, the global impact of Blessed Michael McGivney. For more details, go on to our website, EWTN.com. Up next, as the presidential election draws closer, we hear about an initiative that seeks to use prayer to guide and unite our nation. Ahead of Election Day, a nonpartisan group founded by laity is organizing a nationwide day of prayer next Tuesday to help foster peace. Organizers of Unite the Nation, which helped plan this Eucharistic procession and patriotic rosary rally in Wisconsin, are asking the faithful to help organize a day of adoration on November 3rd in every parish throughout the country. Joining me now on Skype to tell us more about next Tuesday's event is Helen Flanagan, Director of Outreach for Unite Our Nation. Helen, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. So tell me, what inspired you to organize a day of adoration on Election Day, and also what are you hoping to accomplish?
Sure. Thanks for having me. What inspired us, actually, it was 2 weeks ago. It was October 15th, and there was a local men's group, and they were meeting. And they had the idea that they should ask their pastor to have adoration on Election Day. And then they kind of realized right away, we need to take this nationwide. So they came to us. They happened to know our leader, Kevin O'Brien. And so they came to us and they asked us if we could help promote it. And by 2 weeks ago, on October 16th, a Friday, we had the page up on our website and we started promoting it. And the reason we want to do it is there's just so much unrest right now, and there's fear and there's incivility in our country. And the only way we're going to cure that, we think, is through this adoration, because we have to bring God and we have to bring our concerns to God, and we've got to ask him to bless our nation. And so the best way is to open up our churches and to have Jesus there and to stand before Jesus and ask for his help.
Helen, what's been the response so far?
The response has been amazing. We have over 520 churches signed up right now. We have churches from 48 states, and we have a church in Canada, and we have one in Australia too. So the people around the world are going to be praying with us.
That's amazing. I know your organization has helped to plan events in the past, like the Eucharistic procession that we showed in Wisconsin. What are you hearing from the lay faithful about the need for these kinds of unifying events, especially, amid the pandemic and all the political divisions right now?
Yeah, so what we're hearing is that, starting from March and for several months, and in some places still going on, the churches were closed. People were locked in their houses. And there's just that need, there's this need to have this public prayer. There's a need to bring Jesus out into the streets. I think a lot of people feel that it's resonating with people across the country. I hear that all the time. As the director of outreach, I'm the one that works with the people who are planning these processions. So what we're seeing is that when we closed up the churches and we didn't have the sacraments, that there really was this lack of God in our country. There was this physical, very visible lack of God in our country. And now that the churches have started to open up, that's great. But, when we had that lack of God, what did we see? We saw these riots. We saw this lack of response for our first responders. It was just, everything felt like it was falling apart. And it still feels like that, I think. So when we take God into the streets and we process and we take our Blessed Mother into the streets and we open up our churches for adoration, this is a public witness. You don't have to be Catholic to go in a procession. And we've had a lot of Protestants who have joined these processions, as a matter of fact. And you don't have to be Catholic to go into a Catholic church on November 3rd. And as a matter of fact, we'd like to invite people to, invite your neighbors and invite your friends to come in. They don't have to be Catholic, but they can come in and experience that peace, and we can ask God to bring that peace to our country, and that's what we're really trying to do.
Yeah. And Helen, quick last question. Where can our viewers go to find more information if they'd like to participate?
Sure. The best place is uniteournation.net. And in the main navigation, there's a little adoration November 3rd. And you can click on that, and you can find, there's another button there that says locations. And if you click on that, you can enter your zip code, and you can see if there's adoration near you that day. And if there isn't, go talk to your pastor this weekend. It's not a difficult thing to plan. It's very easy, and we would really appreciate it, and more so our country needs it. We really need it right now.
And we definitely do. Helen, thank you so much for your time and for what you do. We appreciate it. Helen Flanagan, Director of Outreach for Unite Our Nation.
Thank you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.